There is a story told in silence, a truth whispered not by the wind, but by your own breath, the breath you did not pay for, the one that comes freely each moment. You forgot life is a gift. From the moment you opened your eyes, you received everything, without asking, without earning. The sun rose, the air surrounded you, and your heart began its rhythm. But slowly, the noise of the world grew louder than the wonder within you. You began to believe life was a burden. You started chasing things that were never lost. You traded presence for productivity, rest for restlessness, breath for busyness. You forgot life is a gift. Gifts are not earned. Gifts are to be received with gratitude. But how many days have passed where you didn't even say thank you for the morning? When was the last time you looked at the sky, not for weather, but for awe? The greatest mistake is not failure, it is forgetfulness. To forget the miracle of being alive. So return. Return to the simplicity of being. Sit, breathe, listen. Not to the world, but to your spirit. Because when you slow down, you will see again. You will see how the trees still dance. You will see how your heartbeat sings. And you will remember, life was never a task to complete, but a gift to unfold. Open it. Honor it. Live it consciously, gratefully, completely. There is something profoundly humbling about acknowledging what we did not choose, yet were freely given. The first breath you ever took was not a conscious decision. The formation of your heart, your lungs, the intricate web of your nervous system, none of these were your doing. You arrived in this world wrapped in the mystery of existence, already complete in form and function, and yet over time this miraculous beginning fades into the background of memory, buried beneath routines and responsibilities. We begin to assume that life owes us something, but the truth is, we began in surplus. Before we achieved anything, before we spoke our first word, we had already received the most precious gift, the opportunity to exist. When you wake up each day, there are systems within you that have worked tirelessly throughout the night. Your heart continued to beat, your lungs expanded and contracted, your blood circulated with precision. You were not aware. You gave no command. Still, life carried you through the darkness of sleep. If you consider this carefully, it should stop you in your tracks, because while you slept, your body performed thousands of acts of devotion on your behalf. What would it mean to begin your day from this awareness, that life itself has already done more for you than you could ever repay, not because you earned it, but because life gives? We live in an age that teaches us to measure value through productivity, accomplishment, and external validation. We are conditioned to think that only what is earned is worth appreciating. But this mindset blinds us to the most fundamental truths. The sun rises every day for you. The earth turns for you. Gravity holds you gently against the ground, without ever needing to be reminded. These are not entitlements. They are silent blessings. The problem is not that life is lacking. The problem is that we have stopped seeing. We've trained ourselves to look at what we don't have, while taking the most essential gifts for granted. And so we live in a state of deficit, not because life is poor, but because our perception is narrow. When you start to see life as a gift, not something owed, but something offered, your relationship with existence changes. You stop demanding, and you start receiving. You become a student again, humbled by the mystery and magnitude of simply being here. Even the smallest acts, blinking, swallowing, walking, become reminders of abundance. These basic functions, often ignored, are evidence of your inheritance as a living being. You did nothing to deserve them, and yet they are yours. This shift in awareness does not make you passive. On the contrary, it gives you energy. It returns you to the root of all discipline, reverence. Because only when you deeply appreciate the gift of life do you begin to live with responsibility, not from pressure, but from purpose. When we were children, the world appeared limitless. A puddle became a lake. A feather drifting in the wind became a story. A question had no immediate answer, but it sparked imagination instead of anxiety. The simplicity of life allowed for wonder to flourish. We would lie on our backs and stare at the sky for no reason other than to be amazed. But something happens as we grow older. The rhythm of society begins to shape our thoughts, subtly, quietly, but persistently. Expectations arise, time becomes a currency, and slowly the very things that once inspired awe begin to feel like background noise. The tree that once fascinated you with its shadows and movement is now just something you walk past while checking your phone. The stars you used to marvel at become hidden not only by city lights but by the brightness of your distractions. This is the cost of modern convenience, a constant stream of stimulation that promises connection but often delivers disconnection from the self. Our attention has been fragmented. Moments that once invited stillness are now filled with scrolling. Long walks that could have sparked introspection are replaced with podcasts, music, noise, anything to avoid silence. But silence is not empty. It is the presence of presence, and when we remove silence from our lives, we remove the doorway to wonder, because wonder arises not when we are overloaded, but when we are receptive. Wonder is the art of seeing without naming, of observing without judging. It's what makes us look at a flower and feel reverence instead of merely identifying its species. But the modern world teaches us efficiency, not reverence. We are now conditioned to move fast, to optimize, to improve, to maximize every second. But wonder does not live in speed. It lives in slowness. And when speed becomes our default setting, we lose sensitivity. The beauty is still here. The sunrise, the breeze, the rhythm of the world, but we miss it. Not because it has disappeared, but because we have stopped paying attention. Distraction is not just the presence of technology or noise, it is the absence of presence. And the more we are distracted, the more we drift away from the raw essence of life itself. We become tourists in our own existence, snapping pictures of experiences we're not fully living. The tragedy is not that we stopped being amazed by life, it is that we forgot how, and this forgetfulness has consequences. A life without wonder becomes mechanical. You wake up, you work, you eat, you sleep. Days blur together, not because they are all the same, but because your awareness has been dulled. This is how suffering begins, not with pain, but with numbness, not with hardship, but with disconnection. You begin to feel like something is missing, even when you seem to have everything. That something is not another achievement, not a better job, not a more perfect routine. It is the return to wonder, the return to the sacredness of existence. It is the remembrance that this life, with all its imperfection, its unpredictability, its messiness, is still a miracle waiting to be noticed. Gratitude is more than a polite thank you. It is a state of being, a lens through which reality is transformed. Many people wait for extraordinary events before they feel thankful. A promotion, a gift, a miracle. But this kind of gratitude is conditional. It depends on circumstances going your way. True gratitude is unconditional. It arises not because everything is perfect, but because you are aware of the impermanence of life, aware of the quiet blessings that surround you each moment. A warm cup of tea, the sound of birds at dawn, a breath drawn deeply into the lungs, when seen through the eyes of gratitude, these ordinary moments become sacred, and in recognizing their sacredness, you begin to slow down, because you no longer rush through what you revere. When you cultivate gratitude, presence naturally follows. The mind by its nature likes to wander. It travels into the past with regret and into the future with worry, but gratitude anchors it. It draws your awareness into the now, not by force but through appreciation. To be grateful is to say, this moment is enough. And when the moment is enough, you stop resisting it. You stop chasing something else. Instead, you inhabit your life fully. The noise around you may not cease, but your relationship to it changes. you become the calm within the storm. And that calm is not a passive state. It is alive, alert, receptive. Gratitude does not dull the senses. It sharpens them. It allows you to taste your food more deeply, to hear silence more clearly, to feel time as a living presence rather than something to escape. In the absence of gratitude, we become entitled. We begin to believe that life owes us something, more success, more recognition, more happiness. And when things don't go according to our expectations, we suffer. But the root of that suffering is not the situation itself. It is the comparison between what is and what we think should be. Gratitude breaks that pattern. It invites you to look again, not to change what you see, but to see it differently. The traffic becomes a moment to breathe. The delay becomes a chance to reflect. Even pain becomes a teacher. Gratitude doesn't deny difficulty. It transcends it by refusing to let suffering define the entire story. In this way, gratitude becomes a form of spiritual strength, a discipline of perception. The most beautiful aspect of gratitude is that it requires no preparation, no wealth, no possession. It is always available. You could lose everything and still find reasons to be thankful for your breath, for your awareness, for the very opportunity to grow from the loss. This is why gratitude is not just an emotion but a practice. It must be returned to daily, deliberately, like tending a fire, and the more you practice it, the more natural it becomes. Gratitude becomes the soil in which joy grows, the foundation upon which peace is built. In a world that constantly tells you to want more, gratitude tells you to look again, to see that what you already have is not only enough, but extraordinary. In the world we inhabit today, motion is glorified. We are taught from an early age that to be valuable, we must be busy. The more occupied our calendar, the more respected we become. Stillness is often misinterpreted as laziness or lack of ambition. Yet it is in stillness, not in movement, where the deepest truths of life are revealed. When we slow down, we give space for clarity to rise. Much like muddy water settling into calm transparency, the mind too becomes clear when allowed to rest. In this space we begin to see things as they are, rather than through the distorted lens of urgency. Busyness masks meaning. It keeps us reacting rather than reflecting. Stillness, however, is where wisdom speaks. And it never shouts, it only whispers to those who are quiet enough to listen. The modern mind is often overstimulated, bombarded by notifications, tasks, messages, noise. We have become accustomed to consuming more than we create, to reacting more than we contemplate. In this endless rush of doing, we forget how to simply be, but being is not nothing. It is the foundation of everything. It is in the space between breaths, in the pause before action, where presence resides. Without stillness, we risk living at the surface of life, skating across without ever diving into its depths. And when you never go deep, you live in fragments, disconnected from yourself, others, and the world around you. The cost of constant motion is not just fatigue, but disconnection from the soul's inner compass. Stillness allows us to remember who we are beneath the roles we play. Remember what matters when the noise fades. When we sit in silence, not to achieve something but simply to be, we begin to notice details that were always there, waiting for our attention. The rhythm of the breath, the quiet hum of life pulsing through our body, the subtle feelings we've suppressed. In stillness we reconnect with what is essential, not material things, not opinions, but presence, aliveness, awareness. These are the gifts hidden behind the curtain of activity. They do not announce themselves. They appear only when invited, and the invitation is extended through stillness. It is the threshold between distraction and depth. Many people are afraid of stillness, because when the external distractions stop, the internal noise becomes audible. Doubts, fears, regrets, they surface. But this is not something to avoid, it is something to face. Just as a monk enters a cave, not to escape the world, but to understand it more clearly, we too must retreat into moments of stillness to understand ourselves. Growth does not always require effort. Sometimes it requires surrender, the willingness to stop running, to stop fixing, to simply observe. Stillness is not the absence of movement, it is the presence of awareness. And awareness is the birthplace of transformation. In it we see not only the chaos of the world, but the peace that has always been waiting inside us, quiet, steady, and enduring. Modern society conditions us to live in pursuit of more, of better, of next. From a young age we are taught that life is a ladder to climb. One goal leads to another, and we are always one step away from finally being fulfilled. The illusion is seductive. It tells us that happiness lies just around the corner, in the next promotion, the next relationship, the next possession. But as we chase that mirage, we leave behind something essential: presence. In the race for more, we forget what already is. The result is a culture of dissatisfaction. Even surrounded by abundance, we feel empty, not because life is lacking, but because our attention has been hijacked. We've been pulled so far into the future that we've forgotten how to live in the now. What we truly seek is not more things, more noise, more speed, but a deeper connection to what we already have. The feeling we are chasing with our ambitions is not found in accumulation, but in appreciation. We don't need to fill our lives with new possessions to feel alive. We need to remember how to feel alive in what we already possess. This remembering is not intellectual, it is experiential. It happens when we sit with our morning tea and truly taste it, without distraction. It happens when we look into the eyes of someone we love and allow ourselves to be moved. It happens when we walk barefoot on the grass and realize we are connected to the earth beneath us. These moments are not rare, we are simply too distracted to notice them. The practice of remembering is the antidote to the disease of scarcity. When we remember the miracle of our breath, the complexity of our body, the softness of a breeze, we shift from complaint to reverence. Life has already given us so much. Our existence is not a mistake, it is a masterpiece in motion. But just like a painting viewed too closely, its beauty becomes invisible unless we step back and see the whole. Remembering is stepping back. It is the pause that brings the painting into focus. The heart opens not when we get something new, but when we reawaken to something old, something we've always had, but lost sight of. In this way, remembering is not passive. It is a sacred discipline, a form of active devotion to life. This is the essence of wisdom. Not accumulation, but remembrance. All spiritual traditions speak of it. The Buddha spoke of mindfulness. Christ spoke of being like little children. Lao Tzu spoke of returning to the source. All are invitations to remember that you are not separate from life. You are not an outsider trying to earn your place. You are already here, already enough, already held by something far greater than your to-do list. This remembering doesn't require effort. It requires awareness. It requires you to stop reaching outward and turn inward, to see that the very thing you have been chasing has always been within you. And that perhaps is life's most profound gift. Not that it gives you more, but that it invites you to see again. So now, take a moment. Not to do more, not to fix anything, but simply to remember. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are not missing some secret piece. You are already alive, and that is enough. The breath in your lungs is proof that life has not given up on you. Each beat of your heart is not just survival, it is a sacred rhythm, a reminder that you are still part of this vast, unfolding miracle. You don't need to add more to your life. You need to return to it. To look again at what you have overlooked. To walk slower, speak softer, feel deeper. There is no enlightenment far away in a distant place. It is here, in this moment. In the way the light falls on the floor. In the way silence invites you to listen. In the way your very presence is already a gift to the world. So stop waiting for life to begin. It already has. Unwrap the ordinary, bow to the present, and live, not because you must, but because you finally see it for what it is. A gift.